Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Din. I am an evaluation associate at ETM, Education Through Music. And for those of you who are not familiar with Education Through Music, we are a nonprofit organization that partners with schools to provide high-quality music education. And we believe that every child at every school deserves access to a good music education, high-quality music education. And today we have the pleasure of talking with singer-songwriter Mikey Wax. Mikey Wax, how are you doing?
Doing all right, thank you.
Awesome. Mikey Wax recently released a new single called Stay Together, which you can listen to on all streaming platforms, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
As far as I know.
And Mikey Wax has been gracious enough to donate some of the proceeds from Stay Together to ETM this summer. For any of you who are tuning in, if you have any questions, please leave it in the comment section and we'll do our best to address them. Cool. So Mikey, basic question, how you doing? How you been doing and holding up during the quarantine?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And it was such a thrill to find you guys and get in contact and work together to benefit a cause that we both deeply believe in. I am doing good. You know, it's strange times for sure. In the midst of this, I've had to move homes. So that started in March. It was in the process of moving home, so that was a little chaotic. But I finally got my studio set up, and the first song I wrote when I got back into writing was Stay Together. And I was like, just influenced by, basically at that point, it had been a couple months of quarantining and getting through this together. And then subsequently the Black Lives Matter movement happened. And it was just like this whole kind of idea of everyone we just got to stay together. We got to make it through this, and we got to work and learn and just this whole process of uniting through hard times.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Back to the question. I've been relatively good aside from the move, and now I feel at ease and somewhat put together.
That's great. I mean, it's good to hear that in times like these, which are difficult and surreal, that we can still find inspiration to kind of.
Yeah, it was difficult at first, for sure. Like I for the first month or two, I want to say I had no interest in really writing. I was kind of confused, and then I was learning that a lot of artists felt the same way. They couldn't put into words what we were feeling.
Yeah.
And finally, when I dug down and just like really decided to take what I can out of all of this, which was the idea of like, it's not always going to be easy, you know, and it's always there's going to be change and there's going to be difficult times. But, you know, if we can just basically just take what we can out of it, which is like our human connection, that is a way to move forward and a way to feel kind of alive in a time when it's just, you can't go outside really. And then there's you know, just crazy things happen all over the world. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's great to hear. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, thanks.
And one of the I will ask this question for a second.
Yeah.
So you kind of already talked about this, keeping the music alive in your life during these crazy and surreal times. Anything else you can add to that, maybe? I mean, to write, but you kept on writing and you came up with this.
Yeah, I think once it brought me back to like this idea that you know, as an artist or musician, sometimes you're waiting for the inspiration to strike.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to be like that. I really had to force myself to kind of sit down at the piano and be like, okay, what am I feeling? And at first nothing was there, but then eventually you get to work it out. And I think that's important as musicians to, like, you know, you can always try to wait for lightning in a bottle, but sometimes you just have to sit there and go fish and, you know, like just play around and mess around and then remember kind of why you do, or like you enjoy doing it, you know? So I think at first I was taking everything to the extent of like, this is so not inspiring. This just kind of sucks, and it does suck, but there's something to gain out of that. And, you know, I think that was what I started to realize was, you know, you can actually find some inspiration through all of this.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and maybe, you know, maybe people need that.
Yeah, absolutely. That just reminds me, you use the allegory to fishing. I think one of my favorite
Yeah.
songwriters, Noel Gallagher,
Yeah.
always talks about songwriting as like going fishing.
It is, you know, and I have to remind myself of that too, because so many times I'm like, oh, I'll just wait for, you know, wait till it hits me, you know, and that happens too, but so many times it can also be um, the idea of, you know, it's almost like working out. Like you have to force yourself to kind of get started, and then once you do, you're like, oh, I like this, you know, this feels right, and like you start feeling better, and you know, the kind of musicalness flows through you, starts flowing again, the
Yeah,
creativity. Yeah.
absolutely. I think people take for granted like the discipline involved in actually
Oh yeah, for
going through
sure. Because I'm one of those people for sure. So yeah, I have to. You know, I don't want to make it seem like I'm the best at doing this, but I have to remind myself or have others remind me, hey, sit down at the piano and see what happens. And I think that discipline is important.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, Great. A little bit about why, if you could talk about why you chose to donate the proceeds to education through music.
Yeah.
Huge thing.
I guess you know, when BLM kind of started and I was reflecting back on my life, I kind of realized that maybe I didn't realize how lucky maybe I was to have basic music education, or like even more than that, have a piano in my house, or like have my dad take me to music lessons once a week for piano lessons. Like that's, and I didn't realize that, you know what, that is kind of I was lucky to have that, and I don't know where I'd be without having found my love of music. So I was like, you know, it really hit me. I was like, whoa, like it's important to give back to people and kids. What I'm taking out of this is the idea of education and investing in kind of kids up early on,
Yeah.
you know, because it shapes their future in a way. Like I would be so lost without music. I don't know what I would have gotten into, you know. But I just this idea that, hey, if some kids don't have the access to learn how to play or learn music or even have a simple instrument to play, it's like we could be missing out on the next Jimi Hendrix and not even know it, you know. And it's like, so I thought that idea of finding a charity that really believes in that, and that, you know, and I really just, it was kind of a fluke that I came across you guys. And once I did, I started digging in more, and I was like, this is exactly what I believe. Like, yeah, you know, like I wish every kid who even had the slightest remote interest in playing music had what I was able to have growing up, which was like music in their schools, an instrument at home, the ability to go take a weekly lesson if they want to, you know, to learn, to, you know, to better your craft and everything like that. So that's really when it hit me. I was like, you know, I got to start giving back so someone else can have that chance.
On a side note, I've been getting texts from the production team at ETM, and this hasn't gone live. I totally apologize.
Oh no.
It's can we just keep those thoughts together? And
Yeah.
and I apologize for that.
No worries.
We are recording. Give me a second here.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay, now I'm going to click going live.
Okay.
Okay, I think we are live now.
Yeah, I can see it on my end.
Okay, cool. apologies to everyone. We had a few technical difficulties. We're going to start this interview now. We were kind of rambling for a good 10 minutes without realizing that we weren't live. Let me just check in. Yeah, we got it. Cool. All right. Good afternoon. Apologies again for the late start. My name is Din. I work at Education Through Music here in New York City. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Education Through Music, we're a nonprofit organization that partners with schools to provide high quality music education. And we believe that every child at every school deserves access to music education. Today, we are going to be talking with singer-songwriter Mikey Wax. Mikey, how you doing?
Doing all right, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so you ready to go backwards in time?
Yeah, let's go backwards.
Awesome. Well, Mikey Wax has released a new single called Stay Together, and he has been gracious enough to donate some of the proceeds from Stay Together to ETM this summer. And Stay Together is available currently on all the streaming platforms. So thank you, Mikey.
Thank you. Yeah.
For those of you who are tuning in, and if you have questions, please leave them in the comments section on Facebook Live, and we will do our best to address them. So, Mikey, again, how have you been, and how have you been holding up during quarantine?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Quarantine kind of hit in when I was in the middle of a move in houses, so that was kind of a crazy time.
Yeah.
But after I was able to really assess what was going on, and I got settled in the new space, and I got my studio going, I feel like I was able to get back into focusing into writing, making music, and as I was saying, the first couple months was like it's this shock when something like this happens, and you're not really feeling creatively inspired. And I think a big part of what I had to remember was the discipline of sitting down at the piano and and going fishing and trying to write music rather than just waiting for it to lightning in a bottle kind of thing. Waiting, I can sometimes do that as a writer, just walk around and think that these melodies are going to hit, but sometimes you really have to sit at the piano. So really getting into a comfortable zone here and sitting down. I think musicians also, we have this we're used to this kind of thing of staying inside and playing music. So I think for me, it wasn't this big change, except that I knew there was this crazy thing going on around the world, and that obviously weighs heavily, and you're worried about your friends and family, and it's even when you go on any social media and you see someone knows someone who got sick or something like that, then it obviously has this weight on your shoulders. So back to your question, I'm doing as good as possible. I was able to go home recently and visit family, which was great. I drove across the country and did it as safely as possible. So
great. Yeah, you were kind of talking about this earlier, and you mentioned it a bit in what you were just saying about how you're keeping the music alive. I think it's great that you can find inspiration in times of difficulty like this.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit?
It's not even just like it. I don't want to make it seem like I'm able to just it's work. Like you have to work to find that inspiration. But I compare it a lot to working out. It's like you don't want to do it really, but then after 10 minutes of going, you feel better and something opens up and you're like, okay, I feel inspired or the creativity starts flowing. And I think that's a big part of it as a musician is really forcing yourself to sit down and just start creating and enjoying playing music and seeing what happens, because that's when you're a kid, you just start sitting down at the piano or guitar and you just let it go. You let the thoughts go, and it's not, there's no pressure or anything like that. And I think that's where some of the magic comes from.
Absolutely. And I was telling you earlier, I think people also they take for granted the discipline that's involved.
Yeah.
Creating something or creating a song.
Yeah.
Willpower it takes to.
I am lucky that,
or pad to paper.
Yeah, I am lucky that I have a few people in my life who if I go too long without sending something, they'd be like, what have you been working on? And I'm like, oh, I got to like get back to it. So,
Yeah, yeah, you need
it's
to
like,
make
it's
it.
like a nice mental check. And it's like having a trainer being like, get
Absolutely,
back to it, work the muscles.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So your latest single, "Stay Together."
Hmm.
You mentioned that you wrote this during quarantine. Can you tell us a little bit more about the inspiration behind that, how it came together?
Yeah. So it stemmed out of this idea of, really focusing, sitting down and, you know, um, really letting the creativity, you know, work itself out, because for the first month or two of quarantine, the days melt together. So I don't even remember how long it was, but I wasn't feeling inspired. And it's such a sad time almost that you're like, well, I don't want to write anything, but then why do we want to, uh, bottle this up and remember this kind of time? But then, it was the combination really of being in quarantine and the start of the Black Lives Matter movement, like when, the world was really speaking, and this idea of like, there's a lot of pain, there could be a lot of pain and sadness, but this idea of staying together through it all and uniting and really learning and growing as a human and all that stuff. And like, even through hard times, we can, there is something to learn from that. It wasn't this idea of like, let's just throw this whole thing away and let's just forget about it. There's a lot that has to be said in this time period. And I thought this idea of just staying together, like together we will rise, we will make it through this and we will become a better society maybe as a result of this, was basically what I got out of this whole time period.
Yeah, I think that echoes a lot of what I was hearing just amongst friends and fellow musicians and artists, is that, especially those who are not in that sphere, is that the arts, it's times like these when the arts actually take center stage,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of give us that inspiration or that fuel to
Well, it
keep.
does remind you of like the 60s movement and everything like that. And, when artists were really speaking on some kind of, um, you know, not political, well, that was a little more political then, but like, just like speaking for like the greater good in a sense, rather than just like, you know, your traditional pop song, kind of lyrics or premise. This was definitely a new can of worms.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, so great of you to donate proceeds, some of the proceeds, to education through music. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose education through music?
Yeah. Um, as growing up, as I was mentioning to you, it's like I didn't realize how lucky I was really to have music in my schools, in my public schools growing up, and even more lucky to have a piano in my house growing up, or that my dad would take me to once a week lessons where I had somebody teach me how to play piano. And like, there are so many kids out there who might be the next awesome musician, the next Jimi Hendrix, but like they don't have the access to these, to what I had. And it's not even something that should be so hard to reach. I mean, learning music for so many kids, like that is such an outlet, and it's a way to just express yourself growing up. And I think investing early on in kids' futures like that, is just like, I don't think I could think of a better way to give back than, to give a kid the opportunity to have what I had growing up, which was the ability to just play music and learn an instrument and kind of just have fun with that and
Yeah,
really, speak your emotions and tell your story through that. So
absolutely. For me personally, I think the music room, the small music room that we had in our school, was it was a saving grace, especially
yeah.
for misfit kids who didn't fit in anywhere.
Yeah. I
Even if they're just
remember in sixth grade, like my chorus teacher would let me play the piano when kids would walk into this. If I got there early, on time, like before anyone else, I could play the intro music as kids would walk into the classroom. And like, that made me feel so cool. Like I could play them, and like that was like my thing,
Yeah.
and like if I could just give that to one kid to like learn how to play piano or learn how to play guitar or whatever it is, and really, have the ability to like, uh, find a passion for something that, so, you know, that way they're focused on something good rather than who knows where, I don't know where I'd be if I didn't have music. So I don't know what I would have gotten into. So I can only think about so many other kids who don't have the ability to use that daily and let their minds really soak up that whole world,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, for me, it was lunchtime. I would just go in the music room. But it's also the conversations we'd have around music, just learning
Hmm.
about other types of music.
Yeah.
I think music education kind of fosters that environment. Definitely for me. It did.
Yeah. So when it was really on a whim, like, once the BLM movement happened, I realized this is the time to really like help someone else who might not have had what I was able to have growing up, which, I didn't even realize was like that so many kids didn't have that,
Which actually leads me to my next question: is the
Yeah.
access to music education.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously feel strongly for it, but can you elaborate on that a bit more on how
Yeah.
important
I mean,
that
it was,
is?
I just, what I'm taking out of a lot of this is this ability to have the access to something as what I considered simple, playing music, and when you realize that for so many kids who might be so good at music don't even like know that they have that in them, that to me was really when I started becoming passionate about it. And I was like, you know what, this song, which was inspired by this time period, um, what what more could I do than than really give kids the opportunity to like have the same luxury that I had kind of growing up, which was access to music, to learning, to playing an instrument, to communicating, and being in a band was like one of the best memories of my life growing up. Like that's stuff you never forget. So like, and it just distracts you in the most positive way from other things you could be doing as a kid. So like, I think that's a good thing too.
Now, are you also seeing, like with family members, like nieces and nephews, or whoever, like younger family members, getting into music and having that in their school?
My niece and nephew, yeah, love it. Like when I was just home in New York, and like one of the things they always want to do is like I play piano, and like they'll either sit next to me and like I could show them how to play little things on the piano, like, or
Yeah,
they dance around the piano, and like there's such like, it's just like amazing, and I love that, seeing that, and I, even if they don't end up wanting to go into music, the fact that they're interested in it, and like it's this form of like bonding and just like good times, and it's awesome. So like seeing them dance around the piano or playing and like wanting me to teach them even how to play Happy Birthday, I'm like, that is awesome. Like, that is the best use of time. That like when we have those moments, it's, you don't forget, I recorded on video and everything like that, and it's like it's hysterical. So yeah.
priceless. I have a 4-year-old nephew who's becoming a budding songwriter, and he sends me his songs.
Oh, awesome.
A couple of days ago, he sent me a song about a 16-year-old lifeguard who he has a crush on.
Yeah. All right. Right. That's how it always starts.
So that's what it's about, man. One of the things that I was curious about was your musical influences growing up, and
Yeah.
how your journey led to the current genre that you're in, or the music that you're writing now. Could you
Yeah.
track that for us?
I kind of I grew up. I was very. I feel lucky that my older brother, even though we obviously didn't grow up in the generation of the Beatles, uh, as a kid, he would always have the Beatles records playing. And like, so by the time I was 8 and I started like becoming fascinated with the piano, I learned how to play every Beatles song on piano. Like, I learned a lot by ear. Not every, like a majority of, like,
That's pretty impressive, man.
yeah, yeah. Although I could say that, also being from Long Island, I knew almost every Billy Joel song on piano.
Yeah, we'll have to have another conversation about
About that, Billy.
that.
It's funny how, like, I always joke, like, Billy, there's some people you could tell Billy Joel and they'd be like, eh. And then, like, you tell some other people Billy Joel and they're like, legend,
Yeah,
he is such a legend. But, so yeah, it was really those two artists that got me started. and I could say I knew a bulk of the songs. And once again, I was lucky that I had this piano in our home, in this living room, in a big open space where the music from the piano would just reverberate, and it made me feel so powerful playing that piano. And every day after school, I would start coming home and just messing around. I started writing my own stuff, and I think growing up listening to such melodic uh, music like that. I mean, but there were so many other influences, throughout my life. I remember there was a time period I would fall asleep listening to Whitney Houston, who was
Can't go wrong with
amazing, and then, I got into, I went through a big classic rock era. I was always inspired a little bit by like what was happening in pop radio, but it didn't really catch my attention maybe until high school, when really like artists like Coldplay or John Mayer were coming around, and like, that kind of inspired me. Dave Matthews Band was like huge for me because I just wanted to rock out and jam out on the piano for 20 minutes, and you couldn't stop me. I was going where the music was, and like, it's
Yeah.
I don't really listen to a lot of that now, but for the time period, those 3 or 4 years, like it opens you up musically, and it definitely improved my chops and stuff like that. And I went through a whole classical phase too. I learned a bunch of classical music, so I was kind of a little all over the map. But I definitely, uh, I was into, if the melodies were good, I was a melodies first kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise.
Yeah. And whether it was Whitney, Stevie Wonder, Billy Joel, the Beatles, if the melodies were strong, I was learning it on piano.
Yeah, the first song I ever heard was "A Hard Day's Night," and that just changed my world.
Mm-hmm.
I remember taking the needle back on the record player, like until the next morning. That's what it felt like. That's very cool.
Yeah. So those were the artists that did it for me, and I really started writing music pretty early on. I mean, I think it was not too dissimilar of a situation from your nephew. You said.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I went away to summer camp, and the girl I was dating in like 5th grade, by dating, whatever that was, she didn't want to call me anymore after camp, so I wrote my first song about that.
Oh my God! And
Yeah.
that's the deal. That's baseline right there.
That's the baseline right there.
So great. So what's next for you? What can we expect?
I finally have. I'm in my studio. I finally have the setup, and I'm back. I feel like I'm back at it, even though we're kind of on the verge here in LA of closing back down again. For me, it's. I think I've had this period of, you can call it almost like this awakening. And I think a lot of people have had this, because quarantine gives you this time to really, I've been talking more to friends and family than I probably would have had this period not happen. So for me, I feel kind of inspired again that things are on the up and up, even though right now it doesn't seem that way. I feel like the world has benefited in some ways. Environmentally, it's been pretty positive. Communication wise, I'm staying in touch with a lot of people more. I'm even more in touch with like fans of my music because I go on Instagram Live more than, so I'm just trying to take out the positives of this whole situation. I got married a couple years ago, and my wife and I was.
It's just a congratulations.
Oh, yeah, I thought that's what you said. I was like, I didn't want to say thank you preemptively unless I knew that's what you said. Yeah, and working through, like, we're like, oh well, if we can make it through quarantine, we can we'll probably be okay, So it's like I think it's this whole time period of working on ourselves and the world and everything like that. That I think we're on the up and up. We just got to get this virus under control, and but I feel inspired in a way that maybe it's preemptive, but I do feel inspired lately, and I've been writing quite a bit of music. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Stay inspired, man.
I'm trying to. I think it's almost like when you realize what the worst is, I actually compare it a little bit personally because I've had terrible OCD my whole life. And like, you have these fears and you're like, okay, once you realize what the fear is, it's like, you can move on. So it's like, okay, we know what is happening. Like, this is, even if this was the worst, and it's bad. I'm not going to sit and make light of it, but we could still do things, and we could still work towards progressing in some way. So I feel like we've hopefully seen the worst of this, and I guess that's why I feel inspired.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Stay inspired. This has been such a pleasure talking with you and meeting you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And I feel so lucky that I got to find you guys, and in that, hopefully this is the first of many. It's a cause I deeply believe in, and having kids have the same ability in music that I had. I just, I think it's only the beginning. So, I'm excited to that you took the time to interview me, and that you guys were on board with this whole thing.
Our pleasure. Hang on for 1 second. I'm going to just check to see if we had any questions during our chat.
Sure.
Cool. Yeah, I think we're good. Such a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Again, for anyone who's listening, Stay Together, the latest single from Mikey Wax, is out now on all streaming platforms. Download it, stream it, or however you consume music. Just go for it, listen to it. And Mikey, looking forward to hearing more about you in the future.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.